voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire. Well,
good evening on this day, 1203 of the Trump administration, 181 days to go until our next presidential election. The president has adopted the use of a Scorsesean phrase to sum up our sorry circumstances as a country these days. Yesterday, he said about the state of the U.S. economy and unemployment, it is what it is. Today, when asked about the death toll, he again said, it is what it is, adding 70,000 sounds correct to him. Just yesterday, the president announced he was winding down the coronavirus task force, even though the pandemic is just now ramping up in some places, with the largest spike in new cases now in Nebraska and Minnesota. The president seemed fine with winding it down. Mike Pence, who runs the task force, of course, seemed fine with doing away with the task force, until today when the president said he didn't know how popular the task force was and said he's decided he's going to keep it around. The virus continues to churn across our country in tandem with the trend of reopening businesses in entire states, despite the Johns Hopkins expert who just today testified that none of the states reopening have met all of the White House guidelines for reopening. And despite opinion polls showing a majority of Americans are not at all ready or willing to go back to life and events as normal as we knew them. Indeed, in the real world tonight, the death toll across our country stands at 73,863 souls lost to this virus. There are now, among the small percentage tested, more than 1.2 million confirmed cases. The number of new cases is rising in nearly half of our country. Those are the states in orange on this map. The green states are where the number of cases are falling. Some 36 states have now reopened in some form or fashion. Former director of the CDC was asked about that during a House committee hearing this morning.
There will be, tragically, at least 100,000 deaths from COVID by the end of this month. As bad as this has been, it's just the beginning.
Is it irresponsible to open the economy without adequate testing?
We need to continue to rapidly ramp up our ability to do all of the four things I mentioned, not just test, but also isolate people who are infected, contact trace, and quarantine. By having all of those things in place, we can come out safer and sooner and restart our economy without a risk of explosive spread.
Dr. Fauci was supposed to testify at that hearing as well, but he was blocked by the White House. New reporting from Politico reveals that even as the president has pushed to reopen this country, federal officials are worried. Politico obtained audio recordings of 3 conference call meetings held between 24 April and 1st of May, led by HHS and FEMA officials. They talked about medical supplies and a possible new outbreak as restrictions are lifted. Politico says a May 1st conference call started with the head of the CDC's influenza division warning, quote, the numbers of deaths definitely will be high. Well, this afternoon, Trump was asked about the risk.
Will the nation just have to accept the idea that by reopening, there will be more cases, there will be more deaths?
So I call these people warriors, and I'm actually calling now, as you know, John, the nation warriors. Hopefully that won't be the case, John, but it could very well be the case. We can't have our whole country out. Can't do it. The country won't take it. It won't stand it. It's not sustainable. If somebody lost somebody, a parent or a wife or a husband or Any brothers, sisters, if you lost someone, you could never make up for that by saying, wow, you're going to have a great year next year economically. And so you can never do that. But I will say that from an economic standpoint, I think next year is going to be a very big year.
Trump made those comments during an Oval Office event to honor nurses, where he was also asked about the need for testing.
We have more cases because we do more testing. If I don't do testing, we don't have any cases. So as I do more testing, they say, but you have more cases.
Meanwhile, the White House task force that we were told yesterday is going away, as we mentioned, came roaring back into existence today.
I thought we could wind it down sooner, but I had no idea how popular the task force is until actually yesterday. When I started talking about winding it down, I'd get calls from very respected people saying, I think it would be better to keep it going. It's done such a good job. I would say by Monday, we'll be announcing 2 or 3 new members to the task force.
Those new task force members may be challenged on the darkest aspect of this pandemic, and that is the growing death toll. Axios reporting the president has complained to advisors about the way the coronavirus death toll is being calculated, suggesting the real numbers are actually lower and that a number of his senior aides share this view. One high-level official, quote, expects the president to begin publicly questioning the death toll as it closes in on his predictions for the final death count and damages him politically. Trump was also asked about that report this afternoon.
Well, I think what it is what it is. From you saying it's 70,000, it's approximately now 70,000. I don't imagine there'd be a very big variation. No, it's a big number, but it's also a number that's at the lower scale. I think, Deborah, you could say it's at the very lower scale of any number that was predicted. Because if you look at the predictions, I guess they said from 100 to 220,000. That's if we did the big shut-ins and if we went to the total shutdown.
Tonight, the nation's most populous state preparing to reopen. On Friday, California will start lifting parts of its stay-at-home order, which has been in effect for nearly 2 months. This is happening even as the state grapples with rising numbers of cases in L.A. and the Bay Area. California reported more than 2,600 new confirmed cases of the virus yesterday.
It is Thursday, the 7th of May of 2020, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays, a little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life, and really a lot of the Gulf region too. I mean, come on. I know the grits are not endemic to New Orleans, but I will remind folks once again, the best grits I've ever had was in New Orleans, so there. Okay, and also milk, not water or chicken stock. You gotta cook the grits in the milk. Please. Do we just throw away all of our standards just because we're sheltering in place? No. And what's up with, I'm seeing all these guys like growing beards. Shave your face, get up, take a shower, exercise, do the same thing you would normally do, but shelter in place. Jeez. God, throw away all of civilization just because we're being thrown back into the Stone Age. All right. Well, 33.5 million folks are now unemployed in the United States, and that really says a lot about making America great. And, of course, Mnuchin and the others will just say, hey, borrow money from your parents and start a business. Grab yourself by your bootstraps and pull yourselves up. Okay, I don't have any shoes, but thanks. Let alone boots. Okay, well, we are in for big trouble. The CDC reopening guidance report is being suppressed. Why would they do that? Why do you cover up during a pandemic? Because of your crimes? Is Trump so facile that he thinks that holding back this reopening guide is his path to re-election? Does he think that America is as stupid as the deplorable maggots who not only vote for him, but probably think the CDC is a commie organization out just to make Trump look bad? That's what we've been reduced to. They just want him to look bad. I don't know anybody who's dying from this thing. It's a hoax. Yeah, I guess in some small little backwater towns like where I live. Except the problem is that we have people here who not only know people, they are related to them intimately. Not in town, mind you. And this is a terrible disease to get. And now we're going to suppress, these other aspects of this disease, like these little kids, infants to 3-year-olds, and they're getting enlarged coronary veins and arteries and a thickening of blood in the brain and all sorts of weird stuff that's coronavirus, but they don't know if it's COVID. Sounds to me like the virus has mutated somewhat, don't you think? Yeah, as Trump said, this virus is very intelligent, more intelligent than the antibiotics that don't even do anything to it because antibiotics are for bacterial diseases, not viruses. That's how much this guy knows, and he's supposed to know everything. And the people who vote for him and think the CDC is a commie organization out to make him look bad think that he is just the wealth of information, and you got to believe everything he says. He's not wearing a mask, so it's not that serious then, is it? So you got gun-waving assholes driving into, yesterday was National Nurses Day, or Nurses Appreciation Day. Gun-waving maggot drives into a group of people honoring nurses. Because now nurses are commies. How dare they make Trump look bad? Yeah, like that poor nurse who stupidly in the Oval Office, I guess she hadn't been watching the news. And how you treat Trump. No one briefed her? Said in the Oval Office right behind him, well, actually, yeah, PPP is pretty sporadic. I've been wearing this same mask for, over a week. And then Trump interrupts her and says, yeah, for you maybe, but not anybody else. Yeah, that woman is going to be doxxed for the rest of her life, and her life is going to be hell. She made Trump look bad. During a pandemic. What could be worse? And as David said at the top of his show, if this guy's not going to take the numbers, obvious numbers of what's going to happen when he reopens, he already knows them, by the way. He's already on record, so to speak, admitting like, oh yeah, we're going to get lots of people, hundreds of thousands, maybe more dead when we reopen. But, that's the price you got to pay so that, I don't know, his stock options, does he have stock options? Do they allow him to trade? Anyway. We are the warriors, which is another nice way of a guy who went to a military theme school and dodged the draft in Vietnam because of bone spurs. That's a nice way of calling people cannon fodder. Sometimes some people gotta die so that we can move an inch towards that trench. We gotta do it. It makes America great. Into the breach, boys and girls. So will he accept his defeat? Well, he has no choice. Except we already know that his maggot deplorables have guns, and they will let us know what polite conversation is and what a peaceful succession of order will be. Can you feel it? I feel it. But maybe we might have some on our side. We are, after all, the sleeping giant, roused from its slumber. And we see exactly what's going on. And people are pissed. Yeah, you got some grandma killers out there, writing for national mags, libertarians. Oh, yeah, I don't care if I'm killing grandma. I want to be able to go to the zoo. Take my kid to the zoo. Okay. Pastrami sandwiches, haircuts, and the petting zoo. Those are essential activities now during a pandemic for a certain subset of the elite. And we aren't it. What's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? Well, that was Brian at the top, breaking it down. Well, the death toll from COVID is set to blow past 74,000. And, of course, Trump just claims it is what it is. And what it is a lot higher than the official reports that Trump will claim is fake because he thinks it's lower. A lot lower. Well, it's not. It's higher. Lots higher. He even admitted, if we test, then the numbers go up and that makes me look bad. America is not that stupid. We not only have to get up and vote in mass. It has to be more than a tsunami. It has to be an asteroid, dinosaur-destroying vote. I mean, we already got Vlad fudging his numbers down and touting what a great success they are. I wonder where Trump got the idea. Where was the chicken and where was the egg? I think it was in the Russian nesting doll. Please. On the rest of the menu in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Trump said he wants to terminate health care and cause tens of millions to lose their health insurance during the pandemic because he thinks that's the path to victory. The new White House press secretary called oversight of pandemic funds a publicity stunt, while Trump's Lincoln Memorial stunt was essential government business. And a stalwart Trump ally was named Postmaster General. So say goodbye to that Prime package and your mail-in ballot. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where the International Boundary and Water Commission found the construction firm promoted by Trump to build his border wall violated the Rio Grande Treaty. Yeah, but they're not going to make him take it down. And Poland's ruling party struck a deal to postpone the presidential vote, averting a political crisis and maybe even massive death caused by the pandemic. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page is our chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Have any concerns or whatnot? Kelly will help you out, and she'll monitor the whole room because that's what you do. Thank you, Kelly, for doing that. And of course, Kelly does so much more than monitor the chat room. Come on. If you would like to then take a gander to the leftish of the page, our Patreon link is there. And thank you for those of you who are continuing to be recurring Patreons of Netroots Radio. I know it's tough. Some of you have not been able to, and that is okay. All right, we stretch these dollars on the quantum level. We leave no quark unquarked. Even the strange ones. Yeah. And but thank you to those of you who are continuing to help us pay our bills in this time, because the bills are increasing. They do that. You would think you get a little bit of a break, but no. It was already in the pipeline. It's got to be done no matter what. Anyway, we're able to fly under the radar and always have because we pay our bills. And so we're able to get away with a lot. And we are able to get away with a lot because of your help. And we thank you for letting us fulfill our civic duty of resisting as the founders originally intended so many, almost eons ago. Okay. What is time? It's fungible anyway. 9 years plus. We're going on 10 years of continuous 24/7, 365 resistance broadcast radio, and we are able to do it because of you. Thank you. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that end. I should go unmentioned, but I'm going to say it anyway. Tom does so much more than just take care of Twitter. Okay? Come on. If you would like to follow the show on Twitter, do so at Cookbook West. And pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, Spreaker, you know where, everywhere. Oh, also, follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Codes 10 minutes before showtime and get that out on social media. So there. Okay. A little bit out of order, but that's the way we do it. It's a salon. Okay. Oh, which reminds me, Michael McClure passed. I used to attend his salon when he lived in Albany, so many years ago. When I first got to the Bay Area full time back in the not quite mid '80s, and I guess we were living in Oakland at that point before we moved over to Muir Beach. I lived in, I guess you'd call it a collective household. Yeah, we were a collective of sorts. We were friends from Southern California. Some of us knew each other since we were in grade school. And then the circle of friends that expanded from that. You know, you go to different colleges and you pick up some friends there. And next thing you know, you got a half a dozen people and you're going to get a big old house in Oakland, which we did. And then we moved to Muir Beach and got an even bigger place. Oh, man, that place was great. But, so I used to go to Michael McClure's salon weekly when he was in Albany, and then eventually he moved to Oakland. But I stopped going to the salon at some point because it was on the other side of the bay, probably. But, yeah, Michael McClure, one of the beat, you could almost say he began the beat movement. He was the booking guy, I guess. Did he book for the big poetry reading at the Sixth Gallery? Anyway, he was the one that brought in all these different poets, Kerouac, Ginsberg, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he probably would have been much more well-known if Allen Ginsberg's Howl hadn't been censored by the United States of America for being obscene. Yeah. When you're roaming the American supermarket at night, you don't want to remind people that, hey, that's pretty obscene in some quarters, and it was. Anyway, Michael McClure, dead at the age, I believe, of 85. I think that's what his age was, but a really good guy, very soft-spoken, but had a power about him, and he was a trickster. Let's be clear about that, and you know what I mean if you know about U.S. West Coast American literature. I think it's even more so than that. All right, we should get into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and it is by Emily Singer out of the American Independent. Trump said yesterday, Wednesday, he still supports a Republican-led lawsuit before the Supreme Court that seeks to invalidate the Affordable Care Act, even amid the COVID-19 pandemic. I want to get rid of it. Yeah, I want to terminate health care. Really? Kind of makes you think that maybe Trump has something else in mind. Huh? I mean, we're seeing the Arbeit macht frei signage. That doesn't come out of a vacuum. Is something about the final solution to be bandied about next? I wonder. More than 1.2 million Americans have tested positive for the virus, and you know it's a lot more than that because we don't test. And nearly 72,000 have died from it that we know about because we don't test. And that was according to a tally from the Washington Post, because the CDC doesn't get to give us those numbers because apparently they're a commie organization just out to make Trump look bad. Meanwhile, more than 30 million, well, it's 33.5 now, have lost their jobs. And with that, they may have lost their employer-sponsored health care. And without the ACA, better known affectionately on our side as Obamacare and with derision on their side as Obamacare, it's unclear how those Americans would secure health insurance to pay for the cost of medical care or hospitalization if they contracted the coronavirus. Well, I guess we'll just have to throw those people in a ditch and cover them up. Isn't that how it used to be done? Members of Trump's own administration, including Bill Barr, have urged Trump to back off its support of a lawsuit from Republican attorneys general that would invalidate Obamacare because they're crass, craven politicos, and they know that this is like stupid. But if there's one thing that Trump is an expert about, it's stupid. He has to get rid of everything the black guy did. Whatever the black guy did, he's got to get rid of it, no matter what. And I guess it means even losing his election. But he doesn't think he's going to lose because who's going to make him leave? You and what army? Now, of course, according to CNN, those aides fear the political blowback if Obamacare is repealed, given that the law is popular. But that Trump doesn't know that. They don't tell him that. Trump, who once tried to repeal Obamacare and failed due to the unpopularity of the GOP's replacement plan, says he has no plan to abandon support for the lawsuit because it's still the black guy. The black guy still did it. We got to get rid of it. It's icky. I don't want it around. Instead, without providing a concrete plan, Trump said that he will replace Obamacare with something better that will still cover pre-existing conditions and will cost less because it costs a lot less when they're burying you alive. The GOP plan that failed to pass Congress in 2017 did not fully cover pre-existing conditions and would have allowed insurers to charge sick people more money for coverage. The only thing that Trump hates more than America is Americans. Great Oliver Willis of The American Independent brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. During a press briefing yesterday, Wednesday, Trump's new press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany, decried publicity stunts during the coronavirus pandemic, criticizing House Democrats for trying to hold oversight hearings that the White House is trying to block. We don't have the time in the middle of a pandemic for publicity stunts, she said, then added, this is not the time for that. It's not the place for that. The complaint comes just 3 days after Trump was interviewed by the conservative Fox News channel at the Lincoln Memorial. Interior Secretary David Barnhart deemed the Fox appearance a core governmental function in order to lift the ban on events at the memorial. Notably, Trump claimed during the interview he was treated worse than Lincoln, who was assassinated. Really? Are you being prescient? In April, Trump held an elaborate photo op on the lawn of the White House in which he handed out golden keys to truck drivers, thanking them for transporting supplies across the country that he probably stole. Trump repeatedly violated his own task force's social distancing guidelines as he posed for multiple photos. So, let's be clear. Baghdad Barb is calling a constitutionally mandated function of government a publicity stunt, and publicity stunts by Trump for his re-election are considered, well, pretty much core and essential government business. Anonymous worker bees at Reuters bring us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A Republican Party donor was named to lead the U.S. Postal Service, which Trump has criticized for not charging companies like Amazon more for package delivery. He means charging Americans more because he hates America, but he hates Americans even more. The Postal Service's Board of Governors announced it had chosen North Carolina businessman Louis DeJoy to be the U.S. Postmaster General as the agency grapples with severe financial stress, due in part to the coronavirus pandemic, but mostly because they have to fund a retirement plan 70-some-odd years in the future. They got to pay it off in 10 years, and it's supposed to be for people that aren't even born yet, and no one and no company, no government organization has ever had to do that before, because they're trying to get rid of a constitutionally approved, and this is from the beginning, the writing of the Constitution. A postal service was part of that. But if you're going to destroy America, what's a postal service? They might try to get a bank going. Don't want to have that either. Louis DeJoy understands the critical public service role of the United States Postal Service and the urgent need to strengthen it for future generations, Robert Duncan, chairman of the Board of Governors, said in a statement while winking and holding his fingers behind his back, crossed, of course. DeJoy replaces Megan Brennan, who announced in October that she planned to retire. Last year, DeJoy was chosen to lead the fundraising efforts for the Republican National Convention, which will be held in Charlotte, North Carolina in late August. Wow, is he continuing on with that function too? Everybody multitasks in this mob organization. The Postal Service, which employs more than 600,000 people, 600,000, and most of them are union members, got to get rid of that, has said that it may not be able to continue service past September without help. How about telling them they don't need to fund this stupid retirement plan 70-some-odd years in the future for workers that aren't even born yet? How about that? Well, Trump has threatened to block federal aid for the Postal Service unless it raised rates it charges online shippers like Amazon.com. And he's long accused the post office of charging too little for packages. Amazon founder and chief executive Jeff Bezos, we all know, owns the Washington Post, which Trump has accused of unfair coverage of his administration. But we know that raising prices to deliver packages would mean you and me, Americans, would pay higher prices. And why would Trump advocate for that? Because Trump hates Americans. All right, let's get to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Suzanne Bard. We recognize our friends' faces, and we're not alone. Many social animals can identify individuals of their own species by their facial features. That's important because they need to be able to adjust their behavior depending on who they encounter. And research has shown that some species of monkeys, birds, and domesticated animals can even distinguish among different faces by looking at photographs alone. Scientists have also wondered whether domesticated animals that have coexisted with people for thousands of years can recognize different human faces. For example, we've shared more than 5,000 years of our history with horses. Plus, they can live up to 30 years and may need to retain a great deal of information about us throughout their lifetimes. Ethologist Léa Lonsad of the French National Research Institute for Agriculture, Food and Environment did an experiment to find out how well horses can recognize individual people in photographs. She and her team first taught the horses how to choose between two side-by-side images by touching their noses to a computer screen. The horses were then shown photos of their current keeper alongside faces of unfamiliar humans. They had never seen photos of any of the people before. The horses correctly identified their current keeper and ignored the stranger's face about 75% of the time, significantly better than chance. What's more, the horses also preferentially picked photos of their previous keeper, a person they hadn't seen in 6 months. In fact, even though the horses didn't get it right every single time, they were at least as accurate in picking out their previous keeper as they were at identifying their current one. The findings are in the journal Scientific Reports. The results suggest that not only can horses differentiate between familiar and unfamiliar human faces, they intuitively understand that photographs are two-dimensional representations of real life, without any other cues such as odor or sound. And they're even better at this than our oldest animal companion, the domestic dog. In addition, horses seem to have a robust long-term memory for human faces, consistent with their long lifespan and history of domestication. In future experiments, the researchers would like to test whether looking at photos of people that they have had bad experiences with in the past might cause horses to act anxious or even avoidant. So maybe think twice before doing anything at a stable that might give a horse a long face. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Suzanne Bard.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Colorectal cancer is the number 2 cancer killer of men and women in the United States, but it is preventable. Early on, colorectal cancer typically has no symptoms. It starts with a precancerous polyp or abnormal growth in the colon, which can be removed without surgery. Several tests are available to find these polyps, so they can be removed before they turn into cancer. Screening also finds colorectal cancer early when treatment works best. Recommended screening for adults at average risk begins at age 50 and continues until age 75. Learn about screening test options and find out which tests are covered by insurance. Talk to your healthcare provider about when you should be screened and discuss the best tests for you. For more information about colorectal cancer prevention, please visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com. All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. And it doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution, and you'll get a wondiferous pair of Netroots radio stickers for application to your backpack, your bumper sticker, or your banjo. Well, it's up to you which backpack you want to put it on. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage, because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
Here's how I feel about the value of our nation's postal service. The humble post office is a community fixture, a civic inheritance, a rural lifeline, and one of the last vestiges of a shared civic culture in America. Tolerate it, treasure it, and don't let the vicissitudes of global capitalism, contempt for government, or a viral outbreak take it away. Those are my sentiments, but not my words. They're from the American Conservative magazine, calling on people of all political persuasions to save this vital public institution. The men and women of the Postal Service have been steadfast in their duties, especially in times of national emergencies, literally delivering for the American people. In today's terrible pandemic, these workers have kept communication and commerce flowing. No matter who you are, how rich or poor, living in teeming inner cities or isolated rural reaches, postal employees are on the job, so you and I can get our mail, medicines, food, household necessities, election ballots, and other basics brought right to our doors. A stamp is cheap, yet the wear, tear, and costs for the postal workforce can be high. For example, about 1,200 of them have been infected by COVID-19, and at least 44 have died. Yet, the entire public system is now under direct attack by a man-made pestilence called Trumpista vitriolitis that's emanating from the White House. By controlling a $10 billion line of credit that the post office must have to get through the current coronavirus depression, Trump is demanding cuts in the wages, benefits, and rights of our stalwart postal workers, plus authority over hiring top postal officials and the right to raise postal rates. This is Jim Hightower saying, to help stop Trump's power play to become America's postal potentate and privatizer-in-chief, go to the American Postal Workers Union at usmailnotforsale.org.
If you'd like more of Jim Hightower's real populism, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter gives you the real lowdown on which corporations, by name, are doing what to the middle class, our environment, and our democracy. Each month, the Hightower Lowdown brings you facts you didn't know, along with actions you can take to fight back. It also comes with a sense of humor. Hightower believes we can fight the gods and still have fun. Plus, get this, it's cheap. Only $15 brings you 12 issues a year. For real populism, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1937. That was the day animators struck Fleischer Studios in New York City. It was the industry's first strike. Creators of Popeye the Sailor Man and Betty Boop were fed up with working conditions at Fleischer. They were sick of the long hours, low pay, no paid sick leave, or even vacation time. Some had worked years without a day off. As well, they resented having to ask permission to use the bathroom. Animation workers wanted better working conditions and medical insurance. 2 animators had recently died of tuberculosis, and workers linked their deaths to poor ventilation in the studio. They had been trying to organize with the Commercial Artists and Designers Union for over a year. 2 leading animators were fired for union activity a month earlier, and another 13 were fired when the union approached the studio demanding their reinstatement, union recognition, wage increases, and benefits. In his book, Drawing the Line, Tom Cito writes that picketers were soon marching on Broadway singing, "We're Popeye the Union Man. We'll fight to the finish because we can't live on spinach." One picket sign read, "I make millions laugh, but the real joke is my salary." Strikers received support from the Screen Actors Guild. The Musicians Union refused to provide soundtracks for the studio, and many union projectionists refused to show Fleischer cartoons across the country. The AFL organized a boycott of Paramount Pictures, which financed the studio, and area longshoremen frequently joined the picket lines. After 5 months, the studio finally caved, granting the strikers' demands. But the victory was short-lived. Fleischer made moves to relocate to Florida within a year, in part to bust their union. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
The new weekly jobs report is out, showing another 3.2 million unemployment claims were filed last week, bringing the total to just over 33.5 million estimated jobs lost over the past 7 weeks. On Friday, the new monthly unemployment numbers could show the worst jobless rate since the Great Depression. Experts predict up to 16%. That would mean 10 years of job gains wiped out in a matter of months. Things are much the same in Europe. The Bank of England predicts the UK economy is heading for its worst crash in 300 years, and the EU's economy could shrink by 7.5%, a steeper decline than during the 2008 financial crisis. Axios reported Wednesday a new conspiracy theory spreading through the West Wing. Trump and some of his aides now reportedly believe that the estimated COVID-19 death toll is inflated. Public health experts believe the running tally of U.S. deaths from the novel coronavirus, which stood at 73,431 early Thursday, is actually too low due to a lack of testing and the fact that many people who died at home were not counted. There's no evidence the number of fatalities has been exaggerated, but states don't have consistent methods for estimating the toll, so the national numbers are widely seen as a rough estimate. In April, Dr. Anthony Fauci called claims that the coronavirus toll was being inflated by unrelated medical conditions, quote, conspiracy theories. By the way, you know those CDC step-by-step guidelines on reopening the country in stages? Well, the 17-page report, which was scheduled to be released on Friday, has been shelved. So much for guidance. In today's really disturbing story of the day, the headline reads, Trump taps point man to remove Pentagon officials seen as disloyal. That from Foreign Policy, where they report that Michael Catrone, Mike Pence's top national security aide for South Asia, is moving to the Pentagon to serve in a behind-the-scenes role vetting Defense Department officials for loyalty to the president. Can't make this stuff up. In other non-COVID news, Trump also named a top donor and the guy in charge of fundraising for the Republican National Convention in Charlotte, Louis DeJoy, as the new Postmaster General. This puts a Trump loyalist in place to head the Postal Service at a time when Trump has been very critical of the agency, recently saying,
the Postal Service is a joke.
This isn't a good sign for the possibility of increasing access to vote by mail for the November election. Trump on Tuesday vetoed the Iran War Powers Resolution, a bipartisan effort to rein in presidential authority to use military force against Iran without congressional approval. The measure was introduced after the strike that killed Iranian commander Qasem Soleimani back in January, which catapulted the U.S. and Iran into a tense series of strikes and threats. Trump has long threatened to veto the measure, and Congress probably doesn't have the numbers to override it. Trump called it a, quote, very insulting resolution, and said it was a product of Democrats trying to divide Republican support. Oy. Education Secretary Betsy DeVos formally announced new protections for those accused of campus sexual harassment and assault. Seriously. The changes narrow the definition of sexual misconduct on campuses and include provisions under the federal Title IX law that will allow those accused of harassment or assault to question evidence and cross-examine their accusers. Critics have said these highly controversial changes could discourage victims from coming forward. You think? DeVos, however, said previous guidance denied due process to the accused. The National Women's Law Center said it plans to sue the Education Department over the changes. And finally, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg was discharged from Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore on Wednesday after undergoing treatment for a gallbladder infection. The 87-year-old national treasure will return to the hospital over the next few weeks for outpatient follow-up and a non-surgical procedure to remove the gallstone. Ginsburg participated in the Supreme Court's virtual hearings from her hospital room as the justices heard oral arguments in several cases by phone as a safety precaution due to the coronavirus pandemic. In the first of two hearings on Wednesday, this one concerning the administration's attempt to allow more employers to opt out of the Affordable Care Act provision providing cost-free access to contraception, Ginsburg was in rare form.
So you have just tossed entirely to the winds what Congress thought was essential, that is that women be provided these services with no hassle, no cost to them. Instead, you are shifting the employer's religious beliefs, the cost of that, onto these employees who do not share those religious beliefs.
And that's just a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com. Please click on that donate button.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 49 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting quite a high range of temp from what we had yesterday. We're expected to be in the mid-80s today, and we're going to be in the low 90s tomorrow. Oh my. Should be sunny conditions throughout the day, winds light and variable, clear skies tonight with lows in the mid-50s, winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, sunny skies tomorrow. Winds will then be light and variable, it's like what I said. Highs in the low 90s tomorrow. Wow. Coronavirus confirmed cases in Jackson County here in Southern Oregon. Where am I? Still stand at 49 and none deceased that we know of because, hey, we can't test. Grass pollen here at the mothership is rated very high. The regional air quality index is in the good range at 29 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is high at 6. Barometric pressure is rising. Hey, how about that? And that is at 30.23 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles, and relative humidity is down to 58%. Oh, wow. Well, weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 72 degrees and sunny with coronavirus. Paris is 73 and sunny. Oh, the flowers look so beautiful, but they have a lot of coronavirus. Rome is 75 and sunny with even more coronavirus. Kyiv is 47 with a light rain shower and a forecast of more coronavirus. Kabul is 70 degrees and cloudy with coronavirus. Hong Kong is 80 degrees, partly cloudy, and people are getting sick from coronavirus. Japan is 56 and fair, and they're getting an even more severe lockdown because of coronavirus. Sydney, Australia is 62 and clear, and many of the major cities, even though they're going to get off the lockdown, they're really not coming out to shop because of the coronavirus. And San Francisco, California is 54 degrees and sunny, and they're lifting up some of the restrictions in California from the coronavirus. And New York is 57 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny with coronavirus, and that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Norman Merchant of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Metro Shrimp and Grist Thursdays, a construction firm promoted by Donald Trump to build his signature border wall, violated American treaty obligations with a private border fence next to the river, separating Texas and Mexico. The International Boundary and Water Commission, a U.S. agency, by the way, found that Fisher Industries' 3-mile fence of steel post just 35 feet from the Rio Grande could cause even worse flooding, and called on the company to make changes to the project. Why wouldn't they tell him just to take it away? Built on private land in South Texas's Rio Grande Valley, the project was originally promoted as an online fundraiser started by Trump supporters. We build the wall. That raised over $20 million and seems to be going into their pockets. Maybe they're paying a vig to Trump. Maybe. It instead became a showcase for the North Dakota-based Fisher Industries, whose president, Tommy Fisher, has pitched the company on Fox News and other media consumed by the president and his backers. Fisher Industries won a $400 million contract just in December, when the pandemic was going on and he was just so consumed, to build a section of government border wall in Arizona. The Pentagon's internal watchdog later said it would investigate the awarding of the contract. Wait until Trump finds out. They're going to fire that watchdog. Fisher Industries built the fence in January after a federal judge lifted a restraining order originally sought by the National Butterfly Center. The fence is far closer to the riverbank than government border walls in the region, some of which are a mile or more from the water. That's because the U.S. and Mexico have agreed to share water and electricity generated by the Rio Grande. Significant construction in the floodplain could change the flow of water and potentially damage communities on either side. Sounds like a feature, not a bug.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Anna Koper and Joanna Pluchinska of Reuters brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Poland's ruling Law and Justice Party, known in Poland as the PIS, and a junior coalition partner announced a late-night deal to allow a presidential election scheduled for Sunday to be held at a later date, averting a possible political crisis. The timing of the election became contentious in Poland after the start of the coronavirus pandemic, with PIS insisting the vote be held as scheduled and the opposition accusing it of putting political gain ahead of public health. Disagreements over how to handle the balloting also threatened to break up the conservative ruling coalition, with the junior grouping saying it would oppose in Parliament a PIS plan to hold the vote entirely via the post because of health concerns. The unexpected announcement suggested the row within the coalition had eased, but it was not immediately clear how the parties would go forward with a new election. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio will broadcast on, and we will meet up tomorrow for, and don't we deserve it, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the diner of life. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goer. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.